My first tip for traveling with kids is to pack reliable, healthy snacks wherever you go. You can't guarantee when you're traveling that you'll be able to find your kids' favorite things and your reliable, healthy go to snacks. So, packing fruit and bars and pouches, even in your suitcase, I pack those things so you're never stuck without them. My next tip is to make breakfast their biggest meal of the day. So when you're traveling, you don't know exactly what your days are going to look like as far as meals goes. You don't know when you're just going to be grabbing snacks or when you'll have your next big sit-down meal. So taking charge of breakfast first thing in the morning is the best way to guarantee your kids are full, they're set and ready to go. And we all know that hungry kids are cranky kids. So just do yourself a favor and make them a big, huge breakfast first thing in the morning. So next is aiming to eat at least one meal a day at home base. This is for two reasons. One, you can save money while traveling by cutting back the amount of times you eat out. And two, you just save your patience and grace and avoid another stint in the restaurant with kids, which can we just have a moment of silence? The next tip is to allow for indulgences. And for me, sugar kind of derails our kids, so we don't do dessert that often. But when we travel, we really up the dessert factor and the treats and the candy just to make it a special, isolated experience. Okay, let's talk sleep. Be prepared for changes in their sleep. Man, I think this is the absolute hardest part of traveling with babies and toddlers is adjusting them to that new time zone. We all know how we feel when we travel. Jet lag is so real, and on their poor little bodies, they have no idea what's going on. So you just have to be prepared for a few hard nights. I'd say about 3 days for a little baby. Every kid's different, but 3 days usually it'll take for them to really get set on that time zone. Until then, put your headphones in, listen to some podcasts, and rock those babies to sleep, and let sleep come whenever it comes. Just give them their rest. So one way to help them get more sleep is to try to have their best nap at home base. You can't guarantee that they're going to sleep well at night, and you don't know what that stroller nap is going to look like. But if you give them one good nap at home, then they're pretty much set for the day. And you know that they got a good enough nap to keep them up later if need be. The next tip is to choose your form of transport very wisely. Before this trip, I've got to say I did not like our double stroller. It felt huge and clunky and cumbersome. But after this trip, I am forever indebted to it, and I love it with my entire heart. This stroller was perfect for us because I knew we could face our kids together. We could do a bunch of configurations. So whether you do 2 baby carriers or 1 umbrella stroller, just know what's going to work for you especially, but also for your kids, and take into consideration things like sleep, breakdown, train, plane, all of those details too. Plan your kid-friendly activities ahead of time. So the places we travel to are pretty much guaranteed to have things that we want to do. That's why we're going there, the parents. But just remember and keep in mind that your kids are along for the ride too. So I like to put just as much energy into what the kids can do for fun and activity as I would for us. I like to look up things like local zoos or aquariums, especially big famous local parks or toy stores, just so they look back on this trip and remember all the fun times they had, and they weren't just wandering around with a map or being shushed in museums the whole day. And the more energy they can get out and the more spurts of fun they have, 1, the better they sleep, and 2, the better they'll act when they're just along for the ride for your fun things too. With that being said, I'm certainly not saying you need to turn this into a Disney cruise. By all means, immerse them in the culture of where you are. If you're going somewhere where they speak a different language, try to teach them some important words so they can be respectful and they can say hello and goodbye to people, like waiters and people they meet on the street, and take them to the museums and do the things that you feel aren't worth it because it so is. And maybe he won't remember going to the Coliseum, but he will certainly remember seeing something so enormous and asking mommy and daddy what used to happen there, and seeing the history in the Vatican and seeing the Sistine Chapel that These things are so important to expose them to, that there's such a world outside of what they know. Let them run around and explore. Take them to the fancy restaurants and work on their table manners and get them the fancy local food that they've never had before. Let them try it, and even if they don't like it, they've explored something outside themselves. And by all means, go on that ridiculously overpriced carriage ride, because it will light up their life. The last tip is to remember that it is more than worth it. An 8.5-hour flight with a 10-month-old and a 2-year-old is just not easy by any means, and that alone can keep you from booking the trip. But just think of all the experiences you're going to have as a family, all the things you're going to overcome and explore and taste and see and delight in. This is just such an opportunity to break outside your comfort zone, break them outside their day-to-day routines, and show them how big and great the world is. And no, our daughter won't remember this trip. I don't even think our son will remember it. But we know that they had the time of their lives, and every single time it's our best trip yet.